a demonstration on making fresh pasta dough. Specifically, we're going to show you how to make fettuccine, but the same method can help you make fettuccine, linguine, angel hair, ravioli, all of these things. So we're going to start off first. If we're going to make fresh pasta, we need pasta dough, and we're going to make that from scratch. Okay? So Blake here is going to mix our dough for us. Our recipe is really simple. I learned this recipe when I was 8 years old. This is so easy, a little kid could do it. First thing we're going to do is put 3/4 cup of flour in our bowl, and when you skip your flour, we always like to fluff it a little bit, okay? We don't want to pack our flour in. Anytime you see a cup of flour or a measurement of flour in a recipe, we always fluff that flour up so it's not too compacted. That gives us a more even measurement and more consistency, okay? So after our 3/4 cup of flour, we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We like to use kosher salt. And then we have 1 egg. And we're going to do 1 tablespoon of oil. I'm sorry, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Let's bring that close for you. I'll hold that for you while you go. Thank you. You're welcome. And then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of water. Okay? So what Blake's going to do, he's got all of his liquids in the center of his flour, and he's just going to mix them up first before he starts incorporating the flour, right? And as the eggs mixed up, he's going to bring more and more flour into the center until it clumps up. Once it becomes very clumped and one solid mass, he's going to bring it out on the table and begin to knead it into a solid ball of dough. So you can see how it's starting to come in. Now the rest of the flour goes into the middle, and it should all clump up very nicely. At first it may seem a little dry, but it's normal for it to look that way. What we're really looking for is to take our time and to incorporate it over and over, and all of that flour and moisture will mix together. Depending on the humidity level of any given day, you may need more water or more flour in your recipe. So we always keep a little extra of both nearby, okay? How's that looking, Blake?
Looking good.
It is looking pretty good. Now at this rate, I'm going to show you a little trick that I do. Is I'll make sure that everything here is in one side of the bowl, and I'm going to push everything else I can get to go mix in with that. And now smash it down piece by piece by piece. What that does is it exposes more of the sticky inside of the dough, and it's easier to pick up all of that extra flour that's been floating around inside of the bowl. And just in a matter of 10 seconds, we've got all that extra flour up. So now take all the extra flour, all the dough out, all the extra flour, all of it into one spot. Take a little bit of flour and put it right behind the excess dough left on your spatula, and use that flour to be a barrier between you and the sticky dough. That way the dough won't stick to your hands. All right, we always like to work nice and clean here. So the next thing to do is simply take these pieces and knead it together. And Blake is already skilled on how to knead. So Blake, if you would just knead that into a nice ball for us. You're typically going to knead your dough from anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. We want to aggravate all of the flour and the gluten by kneading it. And what's going to happen though is this dough will become very tough, and that's what we want to happen. And we're going to see in a minute or two how tough it gets very quickly. We should be able to poke into it and then have it spring right back up to where it was. Okay? Probably a little bit more flour on that, and we'll be good to go. So once our dough becomes nice and tough, then we're going to let it rest for a little while. So we're going to divide this into 4 equal little balls, because when you roll out pasta, it rolls out pretty easily, and it gets very thin and very large very quickly. So now we're almost there. It's not quite ready. I'm going to show you a little trick on this too. Whenever I want it to go a little faster, I'll get more flour on the outside and I'll push away from me. And every time I'm stretching out the outside of the dough and exposing more of the inside sticky part. And it takes up the flour from the table really quickly. Instead of big clumps of flour, they're very fine, thin layers of flour. And then it makes it easier to knead it out. And we're right there, it bounces right up. So you were just about there, I just helped finish it. We're going to cut that into 4 even pieces, and we're going to place it in the bowl here and put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. We're going to let it rest. So we've got dough over here that we've already made ahead of time. It's had a chance to rest already. And Esdras here is going to show us how to roll out dough. So we're going to borrow this flour from Blake. And we just need a little bit of flour on our work surface and a little bit of flour on our dough. And the first thing we do is we try to flatten out our dough. And then we're going to lay it down in front of us and we're going to start rolling it out. As this dough rolls out, it's going to have a lot of stickiness and it's going to start picking up a lot of different flour. But when it starts to stick to either the table or the rolling pin, it's a sure sign that it needs more flour. Now, pasta dough, it's a category of dough that we call laminated dough. That means that we do layers of it. This is already very thin, but it's not very strong noodle. So we're going to fold it into itself. Then we're going to set it the other direction, and we're going to continue to roll it out. So now, where I used to have one layer of dough, I've got three. You can see how one little ball easily turns into one big sheet of pasta. Okay? I'm going to roll it out each way. What we're really looking for is that we should be able to see with the light, we should be able to see our fingers through the light. That's still a little bit thick, so we're going to add a little more flour here. And when it sticks, get more flour on it. You don't need a lot of flour, just a little bit goes a long way. Okay? Ezra, can you do that other ball for us?
Sir.
Thank you so much. Show you how it's done. So this looks pretty nice. Ezra is going to do another one, and we're going to show you how to make the noodles. Very good. So you can see how he's pressing it out. Going to fold it into itself. And we're going to continue to do that with all the little balls of dough that we have. So now that we're having sheets, we have somebody else over here, Ursula, and she's ready to make some noodles for us. Now when you have your sheet of pasta, you have to make sure that there's a light dusting of flour on the outside of it, because what we're going to do is roll up the pasta and then slice it. It's going to give us more even pieces, and Ursula's going to show us how that works. But if it doesn't have flour on it, then your noodles will stick together. Perfect, there you go. That's what we're looking for. You notice how she's using a knife. She's starting at the tip and she's sliding all the way forward. It makes slicing the noodles a lot easier. And they look much prettier and more consistent. That's great. And then after we've sliced down our pasta sheet, then we're just going to unravel each noodle and we're going to lay it on a sheet tray with a little parchment paper and some cornmeal. And the cornmeal just helps it not stick to the paper. There we go. And you can also see here that we've got another pile of noodles that we've already made just in anticipation of this demonstration. I'll help you here. And because we've got the flour on it, it just unrolls on its own. All you have to do is hold one side, be very gentle with it, it'll unroll, and then we've got our noodles. Fresh noodles cook a lot faster than the noodles that you buy in a box or a bag. These noodles are only going to take about 45 seconds to cook. So Ursula's already put the noodles in, because in 45 seconds she'll have a chance to have heated up her marinara sauce. Alright, that looks good. A little bit more. Just a little bit more. Alright, that looks good. Very nice. There we go. And as the noodles cook, we can see that they start to float to the top. Now this water has been salted because we want to help add a little bit of flavor to our noodles. And at this point when they start to float, that's when we take the tongs and we fluff it up a little bit and we make sure that nothing's stuck together. Right? Keep it all in the strainer though, because we don't want to have to chase noodles through the water. That's why the strainer is submerged down inside, so we can just lift it straight up. So now we've got our marinara sauce that's hot. We have our noodles which are cooked because they're floating. So that was about 30 to 40 seconds. Now we're going to scoop it right up. We're going to strain off the water very nicely and add it into our sauce. A traditional Italian pasta does not have a lot of sauce. Okay? We usually have just enough sauce to coat the noodles. That's how traditional pastas are supposed to be. So now, we've got our homemade fettuccine and our marinara sauce, and Ursula's going to plate it up with the help of Blake here. Blake has some fresh basil, and he's going to show you how to cut it up into what we call a chiffonade. That's a very thin ribbon cut. Making sure he has a sharp knife so he gets a clean cut. And he's going to take whole leaves of basil, stack them on top of each other, and roll them up, cigar style. And then he's going to go ahead and cut those leaves very, very thin. And that's going to be added to the top of our pasta. In addition, Ursula has some imported Parmesan cheese, and she's going to grate that over the top as well after she sets the noodles down on the plate. So look at her plating. She's put it into the center of the plate and reserved a lot of space around the plate so we can celebrate the look of it all. That looks really good. And cheese, of course, is always up to the person. Whatever you think is appropriate. I like a lot of cheese personally, but other people might not. This is why in the restaurants we typically offer this at the table and we do it for the guest. Alright, so we've got our sauce, we've got our homemade noodles, and we're going to garnish it with a little bit of fresh basil on top. That looks beautiful, Blake. Thank you so much. And if you ever want to, you're more than welcome to go ahead and take some fresh basil. We get ours out of our garden, but you can use some of these pretty leaves also and put it as a little side garnish. You can serve these with garlic bread, you can serve with a lot of fun things, okay? But this is our homemade fettuccine marinara.